Where is this place? Hey everybody, you guys know where the next event is at?
Follow the X.
Okay.
Right over here.
Ah, well, thank you very much. Hey guys, you know where the next event is at?
I'm busy.
Okay. I'll keep on looking. Bye.
Welcome at the Half House.
Hi.
How did you get here?
I don't know, I teleported this way, but I don't think this is the right place, so I have to head out. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to Next. I see you got teleported through the right one this time. Yay, welcome. I was afraid no one was going to show up for this party. So I'm glad you made it. Have a seat, have a seat. I do wonder where the rest is because we had more registrants. I'm going to email them and check out where they were. But you made it, so applause for you. Great. Welcome to Next. So the next hour, you're just going to sit back and relax and enjoy the show. This is the first time we'll be showcasing what we've been up to in the past 2 years. There's not a lot of room for questions and debates and discussions, but we do have an hour after the show to sit down, have drinks, and there you can interrogate or debate or discuss with the team. The team is here, so I guess that's it for me now. That is me, and I'm not that pixelized in real, as you can see. But it is the cue to our first presentation. So Patrick, take it away.
The enemy is a virus, and now we have to do our utmost to protect our people and to protect our economies.
That change is to have students go from learning on the ground to learning online remotely from their computer.
Now, a short time ago, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak an international public health emergency.
What's going to happen to higher education in the middle of a pandemic?
Ready?
I think so.
All right.
My name is Rashida Safar, and I'm the director for ErasmusX at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. This project started once we were in full lockdown here in the Netherlands. As many universities across the globe, we were also forced to stay home.
COVID had just really hit the world.
The whole educational system had to close down, and especially the physical campus.
We did some research and we asked students, how do you feel? How's everything going? And what came back was that there was this feeling of isolation, confusion, lack of purpose.
There were definitely moments where you felt this sense of loneliness. It was, definitely overwhelming to say the least.
I think that's when we saw it and we were like, we could actually solve this.
Rashida came in and said, guys, we have to do something cool. Let's build the campus in Minecraft.
Well, if you can't come to campus, we'll bring the campus to you.
There we go. Hi guys. Welcome back to the physical world. Hope you guys liked the video as much as I did. I want to give a big thanks to Jonathan and to Jules for making this event happen. And yeah, this is Europe's first university in Minecraft. To give a short introduction, my name is Patrick Hare. I'm a research assistant here at the ErasmusX. And alongside my studies, I am also a student here at the Rotterdam School of Management, nearing the completion of my degree in International Business Administration. For some of you, maybe you're familiar with this project. Others, maybe this is the first time you're hearing about it. But to give you a bit of a rundown on what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about kind of why the project, why we got involved in this project, who we are here at ErasmusX, the ultimate goal of what this project was, how we really did make it happen, the impact and result we had on the students and the faculty here at the campus, and then truly what's really next for the Minecraft project. So yeah, how did we get involved in this? As you guys saw in the video, really this was a tackle to loneliness, but I think ErasmusX was just really getting off the ground prior to COVID happening. We had a bunch of projects that were really just kind of, really getting going, and it was all thrown into a whirlwind, as I imagine for many of you, kind of in the same situation. So I was sitting one day and I remember Farshida and I looking at each other, and we had both seen an article about some students in the US who, in their free time because of the pandemic, went and recreated their university. And for many of you who know Farshida, she found this just completely awesome, and she really gave me the freedom, me and the rest of the team, the complete freedom to kind of make this happen. So yeah. Before we get into the Minecraft, I want to talk a little bit about who we are here at ErasmusX. We are a out-of-the-box innovation special department where we are utilizing our technical experimentation alongside our creative skill set to really enforce radical innovation here, not only for the students, but the faculty and campus involvement here. I think it's really unique how we've kind of combined the designers and researchers here to really kind of tackle this radical innovation here on campus. And alongside that, I think I've found myself, and amongst the other 9 student assistants here, how nice it is that we have had such a strong involvement here at ErasmusX. And I think that's really what's made us so unique and partially the success we've had. Alongside this, we have quite a diverse team from all different kinds of backgrounds. And yeah, that's kind of who we are here at ErasmusX. Now, really back to Minecraft and kind of the goal that we had with the Minecraft platform. So overall, we really want to provide this sense of community during the pandemic, with everyone getting displaced back at home and really kind of, facing this sense of frustration with everything that was going on. We thought that this would be a great platform to do so. Alongside this, we found 2 kind of key points, is that we wanted to provide a shared purpose for the students, as well as kind of having this hangout space. For the shared purpose, we thought it'd be nice for the students to come together and be able to build the university, as well as express their kind of creativity with no limits. Alongside this, we thought it would be nice for students to be able to come together and have this kind of hangout space, because you weren't able to be at the campus, you weren't able to see face to face, but through Minecraft, you were able to have that, and it was kind of a COVID-free campus. Now, further on, we wanted to have our further goals, which first, we really want to have this educational innovation that was seen on campus. Alongside it being a cool spot to hang out, we really wanted to have some nice implementation with education here. One of those being, we wanted to have some nice onboarding experiences for individuals who perhaps were going to miss this because of COVID. So we thought that was a great and unique opportunity. Alongside that, we wanted to also have the ability for celebrations and ceremonies for varying faculties and different associations, which we did. So for people who wanted to, go in Aula and maybe set some fireworks off, you could do that. Or if you wanted to go and have a pool on top of Mandeville, you could do that. And I was happy to see that over the 2 years, students really did kind of express this creativity. To kind of further dive into it, how did we do this? I want to first introduce you to the team who really made this idea a reality. As you can see, Alex, Darnell, Daniela, Jonathan, and Rodrigo. Some are here and some are not here at ErasmusX anymore, but it was a great experience. Alongside this, we also worked with the Erasmus Esports Association. That was fundamental for us because we wanted the students to be involved in the co-creation process of this project. So it was great to have them kind of lay the fundamental groundwork for the university. Alongside this, we then worked with an organization known as Shapescape, and they really brought the idea to reality by creating the university to a one-to-one scale. So you really had this feeling of when you'd walk down the plaza, it would take some time to do that, but that was because we wanted to really replicate that feeling of really being on campus. Now, the goals and benchmarks that we had, and it was cool to think that, we wanted to do Minecraft, but we really had to find a valid use case for us to really do so. And for us, we thought our great goal to start with would be the Eureka Week. The pandemic coming out of nowhere and a bunch of new students starting, they still want to have this kind of onboarding experience. And we felt that this would be a great platform to really help do so. Following the playable version that we had for the Eureka Week, we wanted to continue to use the platform to kind of network and promote other educational opportunities that could happen on the platform. Following that, the idea was to really have that be a self-running platform. And that was done so through a number of kind of step-by-step video and text guides, which were really helpful. And I think looking back on it, we had a numerous amount of individuals who kind of took part in these events that were hosted on the platform, who were a bit older, and for some, they had never even heard of Minecraft. So to see them kind of follow the guide and then to join on the campus and fly around and seeing them laugh and interact for the first time, it really, I think for me, that was one of my highlights over the course of the project. Now, if you can see here, we have kind of a selection of the events that we've hosted over the past 2 years. Some of them were just once, where others, they were reoccurring. One of my favorites here was the Lifeversity course, which was this kind of creative problem-solving skill, where they took the university and replicated it and modified it to kind of, tackle these creative problem-solving skills that you wouldn't be able to do really in person. Another was the HRM master program, and this was where the students for the master program came and they were put into teams to kind of create their ideal working space. Once again, this is something that you weren't even really able to do in person, so it really gave the students this moment of creativity to really see what would their ideal office be. As you can see, we did the Eureka Week. Then another fun one was the Well-Being Weeks, where we did this demolition derby. Maybe some of you had heard about it, but sometimes you have that tough exam or you're near the end of the course and you have that frustration. We offered you the ability to come onto campus and kind of blow up maybe the exam hall, or to blow up where you spent all your time studying away. Of course, all in Minecraft. Now, next we want to talk about kind of the impact and the result that we had here with the platform. So we did have lots of laughter, and I mean lots of laughter. Like I said, for people who never really played Minecraft, this is something completely new for them. And for others, a lot of students grew up playing this game, and the ability to kind of have this game, but for your university, was really a great experience. There was a lot of excitement that came with that, from students saying that they couldn't believe that Erasmus had this platform available for them, and that they couldn't wait to go and show their friends and family that this is where they studied. There was a lot of interaction as well. You can see some of the chat that's here on the screen. It gave students the ability to take part in these events, but also see that there were other individuals who shared the same passion for Minecraft as they did, and they could interact in their own worlds off our campus. Unfortunately, we had the grand idea that initially the platform would be something where everyone would come together in their free time and just hang out. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. However, we saw that when it was paired with these educational events, that this is where the true utility came. Now, here to see some of the results from the participants, we saw that for the open days, that majority of the people were truly exceeded their expectations for what it was like to kind of virtually walk through the campus. When it came to satisfaction with the Minecraft tour, it was about the same. However, we did see that a few more people were a bit dissatisfied, but the reason that we found that was because people interpret this as replacing the physical on-campus tours, which was never our intention. This was just to take part for during the pandemic, and then we would like to continue to do so for individuals who perhaps can't travel all the way to Erasmus. As us being such an international university, we wanted to be able to open it so people who maybe were still interested and wanted to see what it was like, get a first-hand feeling, this platform would still be the case. Now, alongside the open day, we did pair the events with certain faculties, one of these being the Pedagogical Sciences faculty. Same thing here, we were split down the middle with some feeling that this was a great enhancement tool for their educational curriculum, where others felt that maybe this was a small hindrance. However, when they found connection with the peers during the assignment, there was a significant correlation with them feeling a bit more excited, a bit more connected to their peers throughout the course of the assignments. And I want to also highlight, it was Minecraft, and I'm glad to say that we did win an award in 2021 for the best in class for on-campus development, which was quite exciting. There we go. So maybe everyone's wondering now, kind of, we're done with the pandemic, thankfully, and we're back to the physical world, and you're thinking to yourself, what's next for the online campus? And that's a great question. So what I've highlighted already is that we've created the step-by-step guide, videos and text guides to allow for you, for any faculties or anyone that really wants to take part in the campus, to really do what they want and express their creativity to the max. This is open now, and we look forward to hopefully sharing this with you and seeing kind of the interactions continue as we go back to the physical environment. And I want to thank you for your attention, and I hope you guys enjoy the presentation.
GatherTown is a virtual room where you can meet each other and interact with objects, solve puzzles, watch videos. It's basically a virtual meeting room. The first thing you do is you create your own avatar. You can pick a hat, make your hair color, really personalize your character. It makes it a very welcoming space for everyone. It is a game, but it's also a social platform. Since it's so versatile, you can really make it your own way, design it your own way, implement certain elements. I think that's what makes it a perfect tool for educational purposes. This is part of a legal skills course, which basically goes through 3 years of bachelor's, and this is for the first year's bachelor students. And in this legal skills course, basically students are prepared for after graduating. So if they work in the legal field, they need to have certain skills, written skills, oral skills, but also knowing where to find your sources. And that last part, knowing where to find your legal sources, is what is a central focus in this course in GatherTown. The transformation to the game made it that the students basically answer the same question that they used to answer before, but they do it in a completely different way. They can make more mistakes because a game is a safer environment than a regular Canvas quiz, and they have to collaborate. I think that's from a teaching side of view, it really enhanced the teaching experience in that way. A lot of students like the game aspect of it. The game aspect and the collaboration aspect of it as well. Because that's something that I haven't mentioned before, but students actually collaborate together. So they're in groups and they have to solve the puzzles together. I think it definitely proved that there is a lot of promises in gamified education. We're looking into ways to implement it into other courses at other faculties as well.
So good afternoon. It's lovely to see so many people here today. I'm very excited to share with you our story of how we gamified a course for 1,500 students at the Erasmus School of Law. I'm Alex Whitcomb, by the way. I'm the operations manager of ErasmusX and also the project lead for this project. Come on, clicker, please. There we go. So my presentation will follow a similar structure to Patrick's. I'm going to tell you a little bit about why we got involved at the beginning of this project, what the main goal was, how we went about doing it, what the results were, and of course, most importantly, what's next. So why did we get started with this? Well, it actually all started with this man over here, Koen Swinnen, who is courageous and innovative and someone who wanted to do something a little different. He had been building a new module for a course in legal tech for Bachelor 1 students. And actually this course, according to Koen, and these are his words, not mine, was a little bit dry, let's say, in his original conception. So he wanted to make it a bit more engaging, interesting. He wanted to bring it to 1,500 students, of which we had half of them part-time and actually working while studying. So there was a nice challenge there. And of course it was online, so this was the COVID time, so we had the pandemic and it had to be fully online. And Koen had heard about Minecraft. That was something that made ErasmusX a bit known around the campus. And he said, yeah, I want to do this in Minecraft because that's cool. That's a good idea. So we got talking and we had a couple of discussions with Koen and also Fenneke from the Learning and Innovation team. Yes, so after the first discussions we had with Koen, he kind of formalized the goal. He said, okay, I need to teach legal tech to 1,500 students using an online platform. And he wanted to make sure that it was interesting, fun. He wanted students to collaborate, to work together. And he also, very importantly, wanted to ensure that the course was what he called low teacher intensity, so it wasn't just very time intensive for teachers to execute this. So this was what came out of the first session that we had with Koen. And at ErasmusX, we thought this is cool, this is interesting, let's jump in. And how did we go about it? Well, the very first thing is we tried to verify the problem. So we didn't just take Koen's idea at face value, but we went and talked to people. Most importantly, we spoke to students from ESL who had done the first year of the law program. And we also spoke to members of the Learning and Innovation team and colleagues of Koen, and we kind of dug into, is this really a dry kind of course? Is this something that would benefit from some funky design with an online platform that is not traditional? And we also did desk research into the terms of how to make a sense of belonging in the classroom using online environments. And after all the discussions and the research, we were happy. We thought, okay, this is something worth pursuing further. This is something we want to tackle. This is something we can help out with. This is validated. We also mapped the stakeholders. It became very important very quickly that there were two main stakeholders. We were going to gamify something or do something engaging for 1,500 students in small groups with collaboration. We needed IT because there were a lot of pointers to maybe needing to automate things. So we managed to steal Jaap. Thanks, Jaap. From IT to join our project team for a bit. And of course, Harriet Schalhaas, who at the time was the Vice Dean of ESL and the Director of Education. We were innovating in her faculty, so we had to keep her in the loop. We did that through the Learning Innovation team and also through Koen. This is the team. We had quite a lot of lovely people. I see Sana sitting in the front over here. And it was a diverse team with students, staff from the faculties. Yeah, there we go. I'm pressing the laser. Yeah, sorry. So then after we had this validated problem, we went into ideation in a typical ErasmusX fashion. We did it in co-creation. So we organized the game storm with someone from the HKU, a game design professor, and also we paired ESL students with game design students, and we brought in ESL teachers, the Learning Innovation team, and our team as well. And out of this game storm, we kind of had 4 different concepts, and the red thread with all these concepts was some sort of escape room kind of mechanics, and we were looking at Minecraft and the platform Gather. And so after we had kind of brought these concepts together, we decided, okay, let's focus in on escape room type mechanics using these platforms. And we ran prototyping, we tested. We ran a lot of different sessions with small groups of students. You can see some of them were in Minecraft, some of them were in Gather. And we tested for things like usability of the platform. We tested for the actual learning, are they meeting the learning objectives? We tested for the goal, the kind of goal of collaboration and also engagement. Is it fun? Is it interesting? And we found that we were really on the right track after doing all of this prototyping, except Minecraft had to go because it was too tech intense and not easy for non-gamers, whereas Gather offered a lot more options and much more ease of use. So we continued in Gather. And we decided to couple that with Canvas, of course, so that there was some familiarity for the students. And this is a little bit what came out of it. So this is an example of a room that you can see. This is an escape room. This was a social dilemma room where students had to run around in the room and speak to these different people, interact, solve a puzzle. Each of the rooms had standardized features, so it made it a bit easy for students to progress. So we had the feedback from the previous room, so students would learn about what they did right or wrong in the previous challenge. Then we had the instructions for the assignment. We had the game elements, so each of the rooms had a puzzle, so we had that kind of game computer to show that. We had the interactable characters and things that you interacted with in the room. And then finally, we had tips for people who were a little bit lost and needed help. We also, very importantly, organized a launch event with new technologies and platforms. It's essential to get people on board and understand the platform. These are some images from that. We also had an epic fail where we learned that apparently on GatherTown, you cannot share your audio and video with more than 250 people. Something we didn't understand when we set this up. We had more than 500 people in there, and we had to troubleshoot on the spot, and luckily we learned very quickly about this little issue, and everything worked out in the end. So what did we achieve? Well, first and foremost, we created a series of escape room games in GatherTown in small groups, and we had different environments. But also, it's important to know we're doing formal research on this. We have a postdoc who's doing proper research into the effect of engagement, sense of belonging, and how that impacts learning in these escape room kind of games. But we also did focus groups and the course evaluation. And we found that a lot of the students reported back that they really enjoyed getting to know their peers. This was 1,500 students. Some of them were working part-time, but they really enjoyed the engagement. They found it interesting to collaborate on puzzles. Some of the rooms really forced people to collaborate, to solve the puzzle and understand the learning. And we also found that, unfortunately, some of the early rooms might have been a little bit too easy, so we had to tweak and adjust that to ramp up the difficulty level. So what's next? Well, we did this for ESL. We're working on a version 2.0. But we also want to scale this and make this accessible to people beyond just a specific course. And we also want to make it platform agnostic. So we're really building blueprints, conceptual templates on how to build escape room-based mechanics into your course, and also then a toolkit to bring this further beyond just the law faculty. And that's it. Sorry about the clicker shenanigans, but thanks for listening and enjoy the next presentation.
Personal and professional skills are increasingly important nowadays in education, but also for the entire life of students. But we are not learning them how to do it. And that's really something that's a problem at the moment, because we expect from students that they know how to use all that different kind of skills. And I think an app like we're building at the moment is really going to help them to be aware of those skills and give them guidelines about how they can develop their skills.
The Ace Yourself app actually has a predecessor, which is Ace Yourself Studies, and it is an application that was aimed for the use of Erasmus University students only, so that students get better prepared at being students.
And I think with the new app we are going beyond that, because we're also gonna learn them how to use personal skills, professional skills, like goal setting, coping, resilience, networking. So that's way broader than only the study skills per se.
Our plan is now to empower secondary education students to start training their soft skills earlier, before they make the transition towards higher education.
The app is going to help them really to make the transfer in the right way, because the transfer from secondary education to higher education is for a lot of students quite difficult.
So with this application, I want to prepare students early on to very much understand and forecast what they want to do with their lives.
Because then it opens all kind of possibilities for the future, and I really like helping students to do that. And I think the app is a great way to help those students building the expertise they need.
Hello everybody. I didn't do anything yet, so wait and see, wait and see. Thanks to this wonderful introduction by my two colleagues Pablo and Rohan, probably familiar to a lot of you. It's a very easy job for me to give a short introduction to the Ace Yourself project. Well, now my face is going to appear very, very big on this slide, so maybe just focus on me. My name is Martine Baars, and I'm an assistant professor at the Department of Psychology, and I'm a senior researcher at ErasmusX. And today I want to talk about the Ace Yourself project, and I'm going to do that by talking a little bit about the background, about the team who's working on it, and how we're actually developing the project, because we're at the early stages, and of course to show you a little bit about what's next. So about the background, in the video it was already nicely explained. There already was an app about study skills. Maybe you know the app, the Ace Yourself study app, which we actually developed in 2017, 2018, thanks to the Leiden Delft Erasmus Center of Education and Learning, and thanks to Erasmus University and the Community for Learning and Innovation. And this app is still being used, and is being used to support students in their self-study sessions, supporting them by using effective study strategies, ways to log their study sessions, and to help them really guide the whole process. But there's also a network. And this network is made up of high schools and higher education institutes from around the Rotterdam area. And they are working on what skills do students need to have a more smooth transition into higher education. And these two facts combined led us to come up with this project and see whether we could improve the Ace Yourself study app to actually help the network to get an application that supports skill development in a much broader way. So it's about using what we already know and what we already developed, but definitely also about really doing it differently. For example, it's about personal, social, and study skills, like Rowan already mentioned in the video, which is a lot broader than just study skills. And it's also really to support high school students when going towards the transition into higher education, but also helping our first-year students at university or applied universities to do better during their studies and outside of that. So the audience, I kind of already mentioned that, of course, but the audience we're actually working with right now in our user research and scientific research are high school students in their third, fourth, and fifth, and sometimes even their sixth year of the levels that prepare for higher education. In Dutch, that's HAVO and VWO. And of course, higher education, our own first-year students, but also first-year students in applied universities across Rotterdam. And we're working with a great team to get this minimal viable product, to get a first idea of what the application should look like. And this team's big. It's really made up of many different partners. It's of course our wonderful team at ErasmusX, and their names are all on the slide. But it's also partners that we need at Erasmus University to get this whole project going and to make it great. And a way to do that is to work with task forces. And in these task forces, there are all kinds of internal and external stakeholders. We're doing the work together. You can see the task forces here on the slide, but I'll quickly walk you through them as well. We're developing the project in these different task forces. So the structure is that we are working to find a good way to have this app fit our goals and our strategies. And then we want to discover and define what we need. And this is what we've been doing in the last couple of months, and you'll see that in the task force as well. And then, of course, it's about developing the application and moving on and investigating whether it's actually working, and whether we can deliver what our goal was, to get an application to support those personal, social, and study skills for both high school and higher education students. We're here, just like I mentioned. And, well, I would say the next half of this year, we're going to move into development and delivery. So those task forces. We have a design task force. And this task force is really aimed at defining what type of users, or what type of product we should have for our users. So I already mentioned user research. It's really important. The design task force really needs that. We also have a task force that's working on the user research. And they've been talking to high school students, higher education students, and their teachers to find out what do they need. You can see on the slide an example of a big analysis of a lot of data that was collected in interviews with all these stakeholders. We also have a tech development task force. And this is really important to get the right technical background for the application. And for example, they have been working on the user authentication and data flows. Let's say the backbone of the whole application. We also have a content development task force. This is really about those skills I mentioned. So we want to support personal, social, and study skills, but how do we do that? What content do we need to deliver? And we also have a research task force. I mentioned user research, but we also have scientific research. Research to find out how should we create an application to support skill development, but also research to find out if what we have built, let's start with the minimal viable product, if that actually works for the groups of users we're envisioning. There's also the implementation task force, because it's really important, whatever we develop, that the implementation is done right as well. And also in this task force, there's many different stakeholders to look at what works, for example, at our university and what would work at a high school context. So they've been looking at ecosystem maps, and they're still waiting, of course, for us to progress on the design and development of the app to do more, but it's definitely good to have this task force. So on the timeline, I just already showed you that we kind of finished the define and discover phase, and we're going towards development and deliver. And here you can see how that is across our timeline. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it's important to know that we're actually starting with conceptualizing the application itself, and I'm hoping to be able to show you more next time. So what's next? Well, we're still at the beginning stages, so there's a lot to do still. Some pointers I want to show you here is that we're definitely going to work on the research. So scientific research has started out with finding out the importance of the different skills we're using for the different stakeholders. But we're also working on the user research and translating that into the development of the application. And also it's really important to set up the right tech environment. And the full team of developers should be ready to start building the app by July, so it's a really exciting time. We're working on the content as well. We really need to find out how to best present the content in the application in a way that it works for our stakeholders. And of course, like I said, implementation is a huge point of interest. So that's also something that is next. But for now, up to the next speaker.
Never in my life did I think I would end up as a teacher, but from the moment I first stepped into a classroom at Erasmus University College, I knew that this is what I was meant to do with my life. And so I've never looked back since that first class, which was now 8 years ago.
I also had this feeling, okay, something is happening here. I have to question myself, what I'm doing, why I'm doing things. And then, yeah, I got this mission in my mind that was what I also wanted to bring the students. So the experience that they do matter. I think that's important. How do you make your students matter? When they're in the classroom, they're not just listening to you. You also need them, or you kind of must need them to make your education work.
In some ways, we always say that teaching is the best way to learn. So probably the teachers are the best students. But what about the students? You as a student, you start to learn, what does it mean to be a teacher? Or what does it mean to be a teacher of my own learning journey?
We were focused on how our understanding of how people learn inside their heads could be geared at an understanding of the impact of learning on society.
I'm a big fan of the philosopher Erasmus, and what he already wrote 100 years ago was, if you want to do proper education, you need to ask the students what they want to learn and what they're passionate about, and help them to accomplish what they want. And that is exactly what we are doing in the CARE program.
CARE and experimental pedagogics is a unique opportunity for students to really understand in depth how the journey from an idea to a transformation in society occurs, how the brain processes that information, how that changes our sense of identity, and how phenomenologically it transformed our desires and our purpose and our agency, how that works in a group setting with group dynamics and with group conflicts, and then how that translates into a societal context, how that clashes and forms structural issues of oppression, issues such as gender and race and socioeconomic class. And then finally, how all of that is compounded by global problems like technology and climate change.
So this is the CARE project. Very long title, community-oriented, action-based, real-world education program. I'm going to try to really unpack this long title in the next slides, and I'm quite confident that by the end of the presentation it will all become a bit clearer. So, who am I? I'm Lorenzo Ducchi, officially educational developer at ErasmusX and researcher. And as you can see, my love for colorful jumpers hasn't left yet. So, nothing much to talk about me. I'm really here to present the CARE project. Before really going into the CARE project itself, there is something I want to say, because I can honestly take very little credit for the execution of the CARE project itself, because it's really thanks to these three wonderful women, I believe, that the CARE project really happened. We have Jeannie, which I called our master chef, you know, the person coming up with all the recipes and executing all the ideas perfectly. Then we have Ruby. Ruby has got a gigantic network in the south of Rotterdam, so that allowed us to really get in touch with all the high schools and the high school students there. And then Lisbeth, our lighthouse, guiding us in these ups and downs of this very long journey. But so, from now on, when we think about the CARE, let's think about also these three wonderful women on this slide. But now, yes, thank you. So now let's go straight into the CARE itself. What is the CARE about? So again, I'm going to start by explaining to you, our starting point, our thinking behind this project. I'm then going to show you a bit of an overview of the course itself, how students then experience the CARE, and next, what's next? So, where did we start? I think the starting point was because of a certain set of tensions we felt in education. In particular, those are the three tensions I believe that drove the initial ideas behind these projects, which are, on the one hand, you often tend to very much isolated in your own disciplines, while completely surrounded by so many other disciplines. Just look at where we are. And some other tension we tend to see is this big gap or divide that we still perceive, regardless of our university motto, between really university and the society at large, which then kind of transfer itself into the third big tension, the gap between theory and practice. We are learning so much, students, but what are we actually doing with the knowledge that we are gaining? So, considering these three tensions, our idea was the following. Let's develop a training for Erasmus University students in the art of PPL, which is just a project-based learning framework. So let's train the Erasmus University students so that they can become the coaches and the mentors of VMBO high school students, so that they will be able to tackle societal issues. Wow, what a task. Well, that's our initial starting point. However, we are all familiar with this big, gigantic bubble. So because of COVID and all the strain that put on everyone's lives, unfortunately, we really couldn't continue, or we had to stop for the time being our collaborations with the high schools. So we fully dedicated ourselves to create a fully fledged training for the Erasmus University students. So, and this training is what I'm now going to refer as experimental pedagogics. So our idea, let's develop this fully fledged training to really see and explore what kind of interventions our students will develop, and then document those interventions with blogs, with videos, as well as with scientific papers. So I've been talking a lot about the CARE project, about this concept called experimental pedagogics, but how does it look like? So in a nutshell, this is how it looks. We call it experimental pedagogics because our theme was education. And we wanted to put the student at the center of their own education innovation. Normally it's us, staff, ErasmusX, whoever, really thinking about how the education of the future should or would look like. Our goal was, let's get the students, for them really to develop the innovation they find valuable and relevant now. So we developed this whole you really don't see the colors, but this middle line, the education track, for students to really learn about educational and pedagogical theories from a diverse set of lenses. So we moved from a very cognitive, psychological perspective to get them to explore education from very different angles, philosophical angles, phenomenological angles, but also moving really into the implication that education has in society and on a very global level. This really inspired them to develop their own project, that problem-oriented project work track, where students had to immerse themselves in their own community to really find the pains, the so-called educational pains their own community was feeling, to really then develop an intervention. So there they could really have their own ideas and have the space and time to implement it. And all of this was supported by a reflection track, which contain a lot of exercises, diaries, workshops, really for the students to really get a bigger sense of what is going on and try really to tie all the knots and the dots together. So this is the overview, but then how did the students experience it and what did they do? So this is just 3 of the projects, 3 of the interventions students developed. And I wanted to show it to you guys because I think they showcase a bit of the variety and diversity of all the ideas the students have. So on the one side, a group of students decided to develop a Dungeons and Dragons games to teach sex education differently, to really explore different areas and sex education from different lenses. Then you had a group of students who, because of one of them was a Polish person, they decided to really devote themselves to explore about how primary schools in Poland were doing, especially during the COVID pandemics. They did surveys and they've been talking with a lot of teachers and students, with more than 500 students' responses in one of their surveys. And then we have a group of students who decided to focus on the decolonialization of the history curriculum. So they've been working together with the history faculty to try to, let's say, trick, change, adjust a course to make it a bit less decolonial, if you can say that. But that's the idea, just 3 different projects. But if this is the outcome, how did the student actually experience the whole CARE project itself? And I summarized the student experiences in these 5 elements, so to say, because you can really see and tell the students really enjoyed being able to do something with their hands, being immersed in their community was something really energizing for them. So that gave them a sense of empowerment, both personally, professionally, and academically. Obviously, they were working in groups, so many groups with so many students, and they constantly had to engage themselves with stakeholders and people outside of their group. So that was a very enriching experience for them to see how different perspectives helped really to bring their ideas to life. Obviously, because of the focus was really on education, you could really see how their views on education changed over time, how they started to see education as something bigger than simply an institution with walls, tables, and chairs. And the attention we placed on reflection made sure the students really developed their reflection skills really critically, but also very much in depth. So this is in a nutshell how students experience the CARE project. So what is next? This is what I call phase 1. So we didn't manage to reach out to the high schools because of COVID, but we developed our pilot. It was an extracurricular pilot of 16 weeks. And then we have a set of interventions that students developed, and we documented with those different interventions with different videos. And if you just go on YouTube and you write CARE Experimental Pedagogics, you really are able to see the videos that describe what students did and what they went through. But we are also writing academic papers because I think it's very valuable what we are doing, and so it's important for us to document everything we are doing. But this is where we are right now. So what is really going on next? That's where phase 2 is coming into handy, because we are now starting to really work together and collaborate together with high schools, and we got the Comenius grant, which really enabled us not only to develop this extracurricular project really into a minor, but also to open up a summer school, probably in 2023, to really bring this whole, let's say, design to the teachers across the entire country. So, this is just exactly what we did. The pilot, now the Comenius grant, and hopefully in the future, the minor, summer school, and publication. Just from a time perspective, because I like to put things on a time perspective, this is how it looks, working on the paper, developing the minor, and next, the summer school. So now I want to thank again the three wonderful women here, as well as the Trust Fund, the DNI, the college, and the School of Philosophy for really giving us the space to make this happen. And thank you again, guys, for really being here and listening to me. And I would say now is time for the next speaker.
Yes.
During the minor, I actually started developing an app together with my team. We want to use an algorithm to recommend books that are close to the living world of children. Because actually we also found out that Dutch students dislike reading the most out of all 80 countries that they surveyed. So what we thought was, if we can get an algorithm to do that and then develop education around the reading, then we can maybe give some time back to the teachers to actually teach reading comprehension, and we can let the algorithm do all the recommending.
The minor was about looking for a real-life problem or a problem specifically in the education, and to find a solution for it and prototype a solution for it.
So we really had to go interview other students to know what the problem is, and then think about ways, okay, what do they want, and how are we going to integrate it into an app or a website or a tool. So they were like, I want to see your process, not your end grade, and that's something that I really like.
The minor was asking me to, in my portfolio, to reflect or to showcase what I've learned and how I've learned it. And that turned out to be like the most important part of this process, was to document what you were doing.
It motivates you in a way to do the learning yourself, which is actually what happened in the minor, because I learned a lot about algorithms, designing stuff with my team members. They learned stuff about how to design UI UX, which I didn't even really touch.
Yeah, in the end, as you go through it, that's when you realize you have it. But towards the beginning, I was like tossed in a whirlpool.
But still, man, it was, I don't know, it was awesome. It was like personal, you had the freedom to do what you want, and if you put in the work, you actually get something back from it, which I think like I'm a great example of that. I have to say, it really kickstarted my life. And I'm also actually very thankful as well. So just do it in general, yeah. That's all I can say, really.
Yes, yeah, guys. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the minor future learning, teaching tech to non-techies. This was really exciting, and I'm happy that most of our students that were there are also here. So, who am I? Well, you know me, I'm Frashida. I'm the tiger mom of ErasmusX, sort of say. And I will talk to you about the background, about the design of the minor, the impact on the students. We also had some, successes, but also some challenges, and what's next. So let's start with the background. Well, this is kind of what happened. There was something happened in 2020, and then all the exchange programs got canceled, or at least most of them got canceled. The borders were locked down, because there was this thing that kept everyone in the country. So we had some lemons, and then we turned those lemons into lemonade. Because this crisis gave us an excellent chance to actually get into what we do really well, which is problem solving. And we thought, hey, this might be a good idea to experiment if we can teach tech to non-techies, because this is not a technical university. And at the same time, we also wanted to focus on a personal learning experience for our students. So we had the opportunity to do something really different, and we took it. And the goal, we had two goals. One was to enhance student agency, so actually put the student at the center of their own learning. And the other one was to enable students in their personal growth. Instead of looking at traditional assessments, such as the summative test at the end of a course, we wanted to see, do you grow in these 10 weeks that you're with us? So how did we design it? This should not be new to you, double diamond, design thinking. This was our process. So the double diamond gave students a framework that, with strict guidelines in how they had to do certain assignments and where they were in their own process. So in the first 5 weeks, it was all about discovering and it was about defining. After week 5, there should have been a definition of a problem that these students wanted to work on. They also had an intermediate evaluation at that point. And from week 6 to 10, students were working on their prototypes. And throughout the entire minor, from week 1 to week 10, they had to work on their personal learning plan. Now, we didn't want to focus on just knowledge transfer because the students were all working on their own specific problems in groups. They had to define a problem. We would not give them one. We didn't give them a literature list. We told them, you're going to define a problem. You need to connect that to a learning theory. So whatever your literature list is going to look like, that is up to you. But we do want you to focus on some competencies and competencies that you build throughout the minor. And as inspiration, we took the book, The 10 Phases of Innovation, to identify on a very abstract level 6 major learning goals. Now, we defined these, or roughly defined them, gave students a bit more guidelines in what it meant, but it was up to the students to come up with a plan on how to reach these intended learning outcomes, sort of say. To get there, we used the SOLO framework. So we measured the students when they started on what is it that you know, how competent are you, what are your abilities. And we used the SOLO framework to keep track of their progress, but also for students to use in their self-reflection. Now, why did we use this SOLO framework? Why would you do that in the first place? Because first of all, it was all about personal development, personal and professional development. The second thing is that we wanted to give students some guidelines and some very helpful tools for feedback and reflection. And we wanted to correlate that to our assessment, which was not about the product at the end, but it was about the process on how you got there. So how does this work? Well, we used the SOLO framework. And students had to pick out their competencies. They had the freedom to choose what they wanted to work on. Then they had to assess what their current standing was and how effective they were in that competency. The second step was to set a goal for themselves. So they had to determine, when are you satisfied? What is your success? When have you reached this goal? And then they had to draft a plan on how to reach that. And last but not least, they had to collect evidence. Now, this evidence was very important because all students were building up a portfolio. As I mentioned, we didn't have a summative test at the end. We were working with a portfolio. And this portfolio had 4 or 5 steps in it. First one was gathering the evidence. And all those little dots you see there, those are data points, and I'll get to that in a second. Second thing was that they were selecting which data points do I present in my portfolio. Third was summarizing all the competencies, all the evidence into a one-pager. And then they had to pitch their personal one-pager and portfolio to an independent committee and answer questions that this independent committee had for them. Now, I spoke about the evidence and data points. We used a framework of programmatic assessment in this minor, which also meant that we had to come up with all these data points for students. And to give students opportunities to use different data sets and different data points, they could collect and select different data points from all these activities. So they could go to a lecture and collect evidence on knowledge transfer, or they could go to a workshop and collect evidence on prototyping or ideation. And these were the 3 main categories, so training activities, assessment activities, and supporting activities. And at the end of the minor, the students had their own personal data set and also their own personal learning curve. Well, this is a little bit how it looked like, especially with the personal learning plan. The first step was to understand what is a personal learning plan. The second step was to actually develop one. And then the third step was to evaluate. And during this entire minor, they had dedicated coaches who would help them in iterations and in their self-evaluation as well. So what's the impact on students? Well, here you see two lines. We measured the level of co-creation between students and teachers. On that side, you can see where they started, and on this side, you can see where they ended. And as you can see, we have an increased level of co-creation, teacher and student. We also measured the level of metacognition before and after the minor. And as you can see, there's a steep increase there too. More importantly, once we had the evaluations out, this is what the students thought of this way of teaching. And these were, well, I think quite good numbers. And the scales, what do they actually mean? But what we got out of this information is that students actually liked this type of education. Successes and challenges. Well, the successes were the role alignment, because as teachers, we had all to take a step back. We were no longer the sage on the stage like I am right now, but we had to turn into guides on the side, so we could only coach the students. Another thing is that by doing this, by taking a step back as a teacher, the students had more agency and they were working on their own competencies. And third but not last is the independent committee who would actually assess the personal growth of the students at the end of the minor, and they would bring in a professional judgment from their own work. Another success was that it was very purpose-driven and authentic. Students gave back to us that they felt like they had a purpose in this course, there was a realistic context, and they had to work on their own plans. So there was no one instructing them. It was very much self-directed. The learning was very much self-directed. We also saw an enhancement in the sense of belonging. Students felt at home, they felt welcome. It was a very inclusive classroom. You could also see that students would hang out together, even if it was group work, they would still, after 4 on a Friday, we would be like, okay, we want to go home. And they would still be in the classroom, but we're not ready yet, can we stay? So that was a really good outcome. But also they felt listened and heard. We had dedicated hours for coaching, especially for the group work. We had 1 hour per week, and every week the students would book sessions with us so they can have, one-on-one talks. And I still remember Jonathan and myself going every week, but why is this a problem? But why is this a problem? And they would actually go out and work on the problems and redefine it and reiterate it and come back again. So they were taking it very seriously. Last but not least, the competency building, it was at the core of the minor. And I think our students learned a lot about their own abilities, but also, the gaps where they need to train a little bit more. And last but not least, the reflection. And one of the students is actually now is working with us as an intern, and he took this to heart. He's still reflecting. Sometimes even annoying for me, but it is what it is. But of course, there were also some challenges. Time versus individual coaching. We had quite a large group of students and we had 2 dedicated individual coaches. So timing that, it was very hard. In terms of scalability, you can do this with groups up to maybe 40, 50 students, but 1,500, it's kind of tricky. For the students, what was really hard is the evidence. What kind of evidence proves that you've reached a certain competency or a certain level? So they had a really hard time in actually collecting or selecting the evidence and building a portfolio. One thing I have found out during this minor is that our students, sorry guys, suck at planning. They would start in week 8, and then rush it off. Another challenge was the mindset. These students were with us in the 3rd year of the bachelor, and we had to kind of deconstruct the way that they had been learning, because we went from instructor-led learning to self-directed learning, which requires a different mindset. So the first 5 weeks, as Julia mentioned in the clip, they were very much in a whirlpool and very insecure about what is going on and how do I do this and what if I fail, and so many insecurities and questions. But that was a really tough one to deal with. And we found out that, the more time students have, the better they get at it. Another thing that was a challenge was building new habits and values in existing frameworks. We had very multidisciplinary student teams. So we had psychologists mixed with economists, mixed with students from liberal arts and sciences, very, very multidisciplinary. They all had different frameworks and different frame of references. So it was really hard for them to adjust their behavior. And again, the reflection cycle was very hard. Building self-efficacy through the solo framework was also something that was quite challenging. In short, a little small SWOT analysis. The value for students is definitely a strength. The way we combine design thinking with programmatic assessment and interdisciplinary project work is definitely a strength of this minor. Of course, there's also weaknesses. It takes up a lot of resources. And there's substantial workload in supporting and executing the minor, so you do need to have a big team to actually make this happen. The opportunities are there as well. Throughout experimentation with this programmatic assessment framework, we did find out a lot of new things that we didn't know before we started it. And we've actually brought everything back also to our learning communities. And we now have the opportunity to work with LDE Cell and bring this minor into their curriculum. And the one thread that we identified is the scaling. The scaling up without technology is going to be really hard. So deliverables, well, we've done this now twice. We built a programmatic assessment guide. We had 10 prototypes already from students. Here's the guide, so you can take out your phone and just, the guide is online. You can just access it whenever you want. It's free of charge, of course, because we like to push our learnings online for everyone. Just two small examples of prototypes that students built. One is dedicated to integrating new technology for interactive classes for teachers. The other one is a bit more on an AI thing with a virtual coach. And I must say, I was really proud to see our students do this because they had zero technical background, but they went out and they taught themselves. We had students that took up Python courses because they wanted to code something. We had students that built a website for their own portfolio because they thought Canvas was boring. I wanted to say something else, but I'm going to keep it clean. But yeah, so students really took the opportunities to go nuts, which for us was really nice because we never knew what they would come up with. What's next? Well, actually one thing, we're going to hand it over to LDE Cell, and because I think our job here is done with this minor, and they can take it over from us. And that's it. Teaching tech to non-techies.
What's next? You tell us, because we innovate together.
And of course, we'd appreciate a follow. Then it's time for drinks. Let's go.